Joseph Downing has been awarded the Marie Curie Individual Fellowship to conduct a research project on social media by Muslim organisations and individuals to desecuritize Muslims in the UK and France, based at the School of Oriental and African Studies in the CNRS, Centre National de Recherche Scientifique. He has published widely on politics and sociology in France, concentrating on minority communities. He's also been widely consulted by broadcast and print media alike. Joseph Downing received his PhD from the European Institute, London School of Economics in 2014. His thesis, The Trick Policy, Recognition and Right to Analysing the Role of Urban Government, Historical Commemoration of Public Culture, and Defining Conclusion in Marseille, Paris and New York, involved significant fieldwork in France. It was awarded the AHRC Block Grant European Languages and Culture Full Scholarship for the 2009-2012 period and taught as a fellow at LSE until 2016 to talk about Islamophobia in France.
Excellent, thank you very much for that introduction. So I'm sorry I wasn't here earlier and I'm not going to stay until a bit later today, so I like to come to these events and hear different perspectives on different issues and different disciplinary backgrounds, but I haven't been very well with a chest infection, so I'm going to have to go home and get back into bed and just kind of try and get better. So, I've come to talk to you today about this question of Islamophobia in France. So the important thing to think about here is to situate myself in a disciplinary context before I talk about what I'm going to talk about, which is my main background really is in the kind of narrative, social identity kind of field, right? So these questions of like, how do we tell certain stories? Why do we tell certain stories in a certain way? How do these affect nationalism? How do these affect ethnic identities? How do these affect local identities? And from a policy perspective often, what can we do to present certain kinds of narratives in certain places, right? Basically, instead of like just talking about fake news issues of, every Muslim in France is kind of fighting an intifada against the next colonial state, and I'll come to that a little bit later. What is really going on? Yeah, what are the kind of common threads that we can tease out here? So, to begin to think about this, I'm going to talk a little bit about the conceptual issues of using the term Islamophobia, because it's something that isn't necessarily straightforward, but that isn't necessarily the end of the ball game or too much of a significant problem. I want to talk a little bit about the historical context of France, because I think it is important in terms of thinking about why structures persist, why we're in the situation we're in terms of France, why is it the French state can't or won't do things about certain issues. But at the same time, and this is where I'm going to give another author a good bashing, I'm glad he's not here today, otherwise I might have got a bit ugly, without verifying history. I don't want to talk about history like it's a given, it's something that's happened, it's always going to be there, it's always important. We know that that's not the case, right? In this socially constructed kind of idea of the world, history, is told in many different ways. Why is it important at certain times? How does it become important? How does it stay important? How does it lose importance? Are all questions that we have to think about. It isn't just a given, right? I want to talk about the contemporary intersectionality of Islamophobia, and this is where I'm going to come on to my three main themes that I want to talk about, which is class, the early domestic phobia, I'll come to what that means in a minute, gender, and some questions of kind of Orientalism and how gender plays into the question of Islamophobia, and also this idea of a political dimension of toxic local and national context, right? So with that said, oh sure, oh sorry, yeah. I'll just kind of resituate myself. Okay. Very carefully. Alright, so yeah, it's not too bad. So, I'll get my biscuits because that's the most important thing. Right? So, Islamophobia. A slippery concept. So if you do a literature search on this concept, if you want to kind of J-store and chill, alright, this weekend. It's not bad, I made that up last week, I'm quite proud of myself. What you'll come across, and what you can easily do, it's kind of like Alice, you can lose yourself down the rabbit hole. right? You'll find these papers that talk about Islamophobia. It doesn't mean anything, it means everything, it's too slippery, we can't kind of pin it down. It's really problematic and it's really diverse and dynamic and blah blah blah. And so there's a lot of, it's very much a source of a lot of controversy, right? But does this invalidate its utility? We have to ask ourselves, if we're going to talk about the subject, should we throw the baby out with the bathwater and dispense with this term completely? Right, it's a really important question because it's something that's become quite significant in policy fields, academia, general discourse, the news, activist groups, etc., right? But in a sense, what I would say is the ambiguity of the term and the fact that it's slippery and dynamic is exactly because of the processes it describes, right? We can't have something that's concrete and all-encompassing, right, that's what it is and that's how it's going to be, because it's not the process we're talking about, right? It does change, it does take into account different processes. This is why Orientalism is not going to cut it on its own. Gender isn't going to be the prism through which we can really see what's going on in all cases, right? Racism, okay, it's important, but again, it doesn't capture all the dimensions that we want to talk about. So I think we use it, but we have to use it kind of with a very clear definition in the context we use it and what we're going to talk about. Which is why I've tried to split it up into other kinds of themes. So, the context, this question of difference in France, right? It's not a new question, and it's not something that's come up even in the past 50 or 60 years, right? In terms of religion, we all know about the kind of laïcité, the separation of church and state, that sort of takes a formal structure in the law of 1901, which is just so boring to read, and it's like in France there's a scholarship on it that can fill a whole library, right? And it just, it's not something I can even bear to look at. The basic idea, separation of church and state, secularism, which isn't about representing different religions necessarily, but is about completely cleansing religion from the state. Right? We don't know. Before the state, you have no religion, effectively, right? You are just like a blank person that doesn't have claims to kind of group rights. Yeah. But there is something that's much more long-term, and I would argue, possibly even much more important in some ways, right? Is the fact that there's also an ethnic component, and this has got a much longer reaching history. So if you look back, and there's a lovely book about French nationalism which is called Turning Peasants into Frenchmen, right? Which talks about this process where after the revolution, France sees its military weakness as a product of ethnic difference. Not necessarily religious difference at the time, right? But the fact that you have Bretons speaking Breton, Provençal people speaking Provençal, you know, people in Alsace were not really sure what they're doing, right? And all of these different regions, these different cultures, the central state in Paris looks at it and says, oh, this is why we're no good, right? Because we don't have people don't speak the same language, we don't have a central culture, we don't have a common idea of who we are. Everyone's got their kind of like, you know, kind of inter-ethnic beefs in a sense, right? So what the state does, it says, right, this is a French language. It's a specific dialect that at the time hardly anyone would understand, but it's taken out of Paris, put into the regions, and essentially the state undertook a process up until about the late 1990s, of trying to culturally homogenise the country around certain ideas. This, I would argue, is as powerful, if not more powerful, than the issues you have around laïcité, right? And explains to a large degree why, under the facade of a state that doesn't just not see your religion, but apparently doesn't see your ethnicity either, you've got these kinds of problems of racism. Because there is something there, which is not necessarily that obvious, right? And I would say one of the problems, an old lecturer of mine, César, called it a cultural genocide. So if it was to happen today, in a kind of nationalising society, so, you can think about places like Nigeria, maybe, right, in a kind of non-European context, where you go out and you tell the Yoruba, you are no longer a Yoruba, you're a Nigerian, yeah? Don't speak this language, don't practice these traditions, this is who you are. This is effectively what happened, right? But the problem is, it's become a dogma, right, which really ignores these shortcomings, yeah? If you watch French TV, and you watch these kind of like, late night debate shows where they're wheeling some kind of fop-head guy who's a philosopher or politician in usually a suit with an open neck shirt, like a typical French cliche, yeah? they will come on the TV and they will wax on about how this is humanity's salvation, right? Republicanism is great. We don't see race, we don't see religion. What's the problem? Everything's cool, right? They don't see that there are these problems built into this system, right? It's such a dogma to criticise it, and I'll come to a discussion of that in a second. To criticise it is like almost political suicide. I mean, there are very few systems I've come across, both in and outside of Europe, where the criticism of the foundational values of the state is so controversial still, right? It's somewhat unique in that respect, right? Shortcomings, Vici, right? So and your hardcore dogmatic Republicans will say this isn't republicanism. This was a Nazi occupation, right? And this is the government that was put in place essentially under Nazi occupation, which deported the Jews and did all these kinds of like horrible things. Like, oh, it's not us. It's a kind of anomaly that we can explain with other things. Well, not really. Yeah, Dreyfus Affair, a much longer history of colonialism. Right, you've got the question here of Algeria, where you had a kind of apartheid-like society where society was broken up by racial hierarchies. How can that happen under republicanism? Doesn't make sense, does it? Right? It's an absolute paradox. Yeah. You've also got currently the worst marginalisation in Western Europe. Right? Louis Wacon is a famous sociologist. I think he's at Berkeley now. Wrote this series of books where he compared the black ghetto in Chicago with the suburbs of Paris, and wanted to know, okay, so these are both different forms of marginalisation, right? They've got different characters, they've got different places, different contexts. What can we do to kind of build this kind of almost typology of marginalisation? And he came out with this conclusion that specifically what he studied in the suburbs of Paris were the worst examples in Western Europe by quite a long way, right? And I've taken students to these places, and I've done field work there myself, and it's like a dystopian Mad Max kind of situation. Well, I'll come to that again in a second. I've got some interesting pictures that we can have a look at. So that, for the context in a sense, is a bit of a summary. Colonialism and the racial hierarchies. Right, this is important because this is absolutely against what your dogmatic Republicans would say republicanism is about. Right? Why have I got this guy? Why have I got this quite corny advert for this, like, in my opinion, not very nice kind of chocolate drink that people have at breakfast? I mean, it's not really my thing. Why is it there? Well, he's black. Obviously, you can see that, right? More importantly, he's not just black, he's Senegalese, specifically, right? Why is this important? Because this idea, and there were seminars at the Sorbonne in Paris, where they would have conferences on this entire issue to try and figure out who could evolve into a Frenchman in the colonies, right? Because obviously these people, they're not like, they're kind of sort of subhuman. Senegalese, bizarrely, came out on top, right? Above North African Muslims or Berbers, above the Jews. So it's kind of like, yeah, Senegalese, they're great, right? They can evolve into Frenchmen, not a problem. Jews, not really sure, depends. No way, yeah? And this was kind of built into the colonial system, especially in Algeria, right? Where there was this racial hierarchy. Completely against republicanism. I don't understand how you can have that on one hand and then university conferences in Paris saying completely opposite. I mean, it's just kind of one of these very interesting moments in European history. Is it a European sort of narcissism or minor difference? It strikes me as quite interesting that North African Arabs, specifically in an Islamic context, aren't as different by any marker, racial, right, religious even, yeah, cultural in a lot of ways, to Europeans vis-a-vis the Senegalese that were animists, that were living in tribal societies, mainly rural at the time of French colonialism, right? So to me this is a bit of a paradox here, and I think that it plays into a larger narrative of kind of a Catholic anxiety specifically about Islam and the encroachment of the Islamic world on Europe, right? So the Moors, when they took Spain, actually got to the south of France, actually nearly took the south of France and made it part of the European Caliphate, right? So there's this, there's a very close relationship here that I think is quite important. which, I mean, I don't want to kind of abuse that concept because it's much more complex than that, but for me it seems that there's something quite important going on here, which explains perhaps how some of these things remain important. So, Algeria in 1962, right? So this is the kind of culmination of perhaps one of the bloodiest wars of independence in any European colonial context, right? And you know, you've got extensive human rights abuses, absolute chaos, you know, Vietnam type situations where the rural areas in Algeria are being kind of bombed and completely sort of wiped out as a sort of scorched earth policy. And what you've got here, which is actually really important for contemporary France, much more so possibly than the campaign itself, is opposed by the organisation of the secret army, right? You see the French acronyms there. And basically it was an underground, proto-fascist, white settler organisation. So you can see here, its sword is breaking the Freemasons cross and the Islamic crescent moon star, right? And they were like, we are not having this at all, yeah? We're not having no independent Algeria, this is our place, yeah? These people can go, we want to stay. And these were the people that were kind of almost behind the semi-coup that almost took place by the army officers, some of the army officers in Algeria that wanted to depose the central government in Paris, right? So it came very close to kind of becoming a lot messier than it was. This is very important because in 1962, 2 million or so people left Algeria and entered France. Obviously, it's independence, right? So they felt they had to go. And where did they enter France? They entered mainly from Marseille, the port of Marseille, right? So they got on boats in Oran, in Algiers, basically anywhere they could, and they got out. You had an interesting mix, right? You had brutal colonialism, early fascism. The people that left were North African Jews, right? Some of this particular group, which were the Muslim North Africans that fought for the French, the Harkis, some of them were able to get out, others of them were abandoned. Again, the racial hierarchy of who can get out, even though these guys saluted the flag, fought for France, you know, were not kind of, almost in a sense, kind of renounced their national and ethnic affiliations because they were North African Arabs, were not evacuated. They were just kind of left, they were not a priority, they were kind of expendable, yeah? But this becomes important as well because you've got this group, the Pieds Noirs, so the Blackfeet they're called, because apparently they wore black boots on their farms in Algeria when they took the land off your kind of, you know, native population, and perhaps this was seen as weird because it's like really hot, right? So why would you wear black boots? These guys came back and they were treated with a lot of suspicion. The hushed tones, as I call it, of post-colonialism. Why? Well, why was this group, again, kind of seen with a lot of suspicion? Well, they weren't actually, a lot of them weren't really French. Don't tell them that, okay, because that's a bit contentious. But a lot of them were Italian, Spanish, but more importantly, and much, much more taboo, and I'm talking about people I've met in London and doing research in France, who will tell you this only when they know you for several months, right? Which is, a lot of them intermarried with North African Muslim populations. So you'll meet somebody in London, right? They'll say, oh yeah, well, you know, I'm from France. And you're like, a bit North African, right? Oh no, but my name's like Celine Pierre something or other, right? Okay, this is quite interesting. And then 3 months later, oh, actually, my grandmother was Moroccan. My grandmother was from Algeria, right? As in, you know, this was somebody who was a North African Arab. And this is even today such a contentious issue in a society where these ideas of racial hierarchy very much are kind of important. Macron, who hopefully will win the French presidential election, otherwise I might have to do the reverse of the Pieds Noirs, the old Casablanca evacuation technique where you leave Marseille and you go over to, they said Casablanca in the film, but it's really Tangiers, so I might have to go into exile in Tangiers if Le Pen gets in. But Macron recently went to Algeria, and he's the first notable French politician to make remarks that kind of atone for colonialism. Right, so he went there and said, look, it was really bad, it was human rights abuses, kind of shouldn't have done it. You know, kind of didn't go as far as saying sorry directly, but just kind of condemned it. I mean, and this doesn't seem such a big deal, I mean, 62, long time ago, we're in an era where, like, come on, who's going to defend colonialism? Nigel Farage, well, Donald Trump. Maybe it's coming back, I don't know. But it shouldn't be such a big deal. I mean, this was a major problem. Yeah, everyone else in the presidential race came out and said, you are not fit to lead our country if you are not proud of our history. So because he's not proud of bombing people in the hills, then he can't be president. I mean, it's kind of a little bit crazy. But this shows you that some of these things are still quite important and quite latent themes in society that haven't necessarily been dealt with. Right? Again, a state here which is colourblind and blind to religion finds these things difficult to do. Right? Because if you don't acknowledge that there are certain groups, how can you target certain groups? It's a bit of a bind that you're in, right? But, and this is where I'm going to sort of lay into a member of the University of London permanent faculty, and a quite prestigious one, who wrote a very nicely decorated, very nicely bound hardback book about a year ago, about 2 years ago now, called The French Intifada. Right, so this guy talks about the fact that, and this is a good book to read just for the comedy factor, about how a very overly historicised explanation. This is the French Intifada because of colonialism, right? You've got unrest in the suburbs, Muslims are not integrating into society, ISIS are bombing Paris because of colonialism, right? Before I read this, I thought, well, it's not really what I see on there, but let's see where he got this from. And his fieldwork was done when he was pissed in bars in Tunis, right? And he would have conversations with people when they were completely blabbered about colonialism and its legacy. And I mean, it's just, I don't know how this got published, right? I wouldn't be able to get something through in a journal. But I smoke shisha and Rolling so often, so I'm an expert in Kurdish diaspora politics. I mean, it's not really, it doesn't really stand up to me. But it's a good sensationalist book. Captures a lot of attention, but it's an essentialist myth, right? History remains important, but it isn't important in that respect, right? It isn't something that is timeless, right? We need something else to understand contemporary Islamophobia, right? We can say it's got roots in certain historical processes, yeah? But the problems we've got today are not because of 62, right? In and of itself, yeah? When I do research in France, as I've done for quite a while now, like, you speak to people of North African origin in France, and their main beef is not 1962, I can assure you, right? They've got a whole set of more pressing concerns, like labour market participation, housing, you know, being beaten up by the police, that is much more important to them, right? So the importance of this isn't exactly up there with some of the explanations that I've seen. So, in my opinion, we need an intersectionalist understanding Islamophobia in France. So it coalesces, this process that we're talking about, we're trying to capture, coalesces under the umbrella of religion, right, the name, clues in the name, yes, you know, scared of Islam, yeah? But it contains many other components that are important. What makes this particular religious label important, salient, and what gives it the body, right, the meat on the bones, yeah? As a process in terms of narratives, in terms of particular events, in terms of particular questions of identity. We can't explain it just using one particular term, right? So class, perhaps one of the most important components actually of a contemporary Islamophobia in France. Perhaps one of the most important from the 70s onwards, where you see the emergence of the first class-based riots in French cities. Partly a function of racism. So, you know, it's the sort of process whereby a lot of those who came from North and West Africa were rural, as in terms of their origin in those countries, moved to France to do manual work, right? So formed a kind of proletariat in France, especially in urban areas, right? But that in and of itself isn't all that we need to think about. We also need to think about the dysfunctional urban segregational policies, right, that make these things continually important, right? When, you know, heavy industry is gone, we kind of move forwards in terms of our economic structures. Why are we still talking about this? Labour market discrimination by postcode. This is a very interesting one, right? A bit like your streets of London postcode wars, but on a much bigger scale. So if you're even if you're French with a French name, no question, you send a CV in for a job or you apply to university, if you come from a particular postcode, it's shown that you're discriminated against. Because in France it means a lot more than it means here, right? So you can live in London in W12 Shepherd's Bush. Nobody knows if you live in a massive house or you live in a council estate, right? Whereas if your postcode begins with 93, and the name of your building indicates that you're on a council estate, yeah, it's really prevalent, right? This means much, much more than it does in a UK context, right? And I think it means much more than it does in most other European contexts, right? And this is quite cool. This also happens by race and by religion, right? But the fact that it can happen based on class base as well, I think is something that we can't really ignore, okay? So, images of class. Some of this stuff is quite interesting. So this is your typical kind of essentialist notion of what young French people of working class backgrounds, or perhaps if you use a term which is quite questionable, a kind of underclass almost background, right? Look like, yeah? They wear sportswear, yeah? They're black or Arab, sometimes white. They hang out in these kinds of environments. This is a picture of a place, Clichy-sous-Bois, in the suburbs of Paris, where I've taken students from LSE. And these are the kind of images that are fed into French society, right? Be suspicious of these people, yeah? If somebody's wearing an Adidas tracksuit and they're black, be careful, right? If they're wearing Nike trainers and they're Arab, keep an eye on your wallet, right? These are the things that are important here in terms of understanding Islamophobia. This is the Shen Pointu public housing block in the same suburb, all right? This is a place where you can buy, if any of you fancy starting an Airbnb empire in a bit of an alternative way, can buy a 3-bedroom apartment for like 10,000 euros, 5 miles from the Champs-Elysees. Right? This is how bad this is. Yeah? That just shows you this place is terrible. Owned by many different people, owned by some members of the Parisian police force. Right? So to try and redevelop this is an absolute nightmare because the open market value is 10,000 euros. You go to someone on the estate and say, right, we want to knock it down, we want to do something about the problems here. We'll buy it off you. Oh, well, 5 miles from the Champs-Elysees and it's 40 square metres. At least $500,000, right? So this is where you're at a complete stalemate. It isn't the same as in places like London where even if it's sold off, the local authority maintain a freehold. So you have a certain ways of getting around, which is not a good thing for our city, but it's a way that you can redevelop places that in France you can't. And not many people know this because they think it's owned by the central local authority or by some sort of charity, and actually often these things are private, which presents like a whole cornucopia of problems. So this is one of my favourite kind of surrealist bits of social housing architecture in the suburbs of Paris. Now I would love to go back in time and be at the planning meeting when they proposed this one, because this is just something else, right? It's built to resemble a Greek temple, right? So you've got the kind of altar bit here, you've got the kind of bits going around. It's built on the model of the Acropolis in Athens, and it's a social housing block, right? I mean, I don't know what these guys were taking at the time when they put forward these plans, but this is some of the dysfunction at the micro level in terms of the architecture of these places. So not only are they isolated as a whole, but even within them, people are living in places in ways that is so radically different from the rest of society in a very problematic way. That these markers, these are part of the reason why these markers are so important. It's like an image that haunts French society. Yeah, you describe people from these places as suburbanites, right? It's a very sort of strongly constructed identity. This is actually a Parisian rap group who's just become extremely popular in France. And again, you can see the kind of images here, right, that play into this idea of a class-based form of segregation, but also importantly a form of fear, right? So the guys here, of North African origin, actually they're part North African, part, I think Corsican, of a mafia background, which doesn't help, right? They smoke cannabis, they kind of wear sunglasses, they wear sportswear. These images are really important to distinguish you from someone that wears, an open collar shirt with a little jumper, over your shoulders and hangs around, in the Latin Quarter reading philosophy. Right? Some of these images I think are important and feed into this process of Islamophobia, because as well as these guys highlighting themselves as North African ethnically, working class, not necessarily practicing Muslims whatsoever, they're also discriminated on based on the fact that they're negligibly of Muslim descent. Right? So all these things kind of feed in and coalesce around some of these questions. Right?
Sorry, the estate on the left, had that been built?
Which one? This one here?
Yeah.
No.
So
Oh yeah, you can go and see it. Yeah, it's near to a metro stop, so you can actually, if you go to Paris, you can get there quite easily. Much more so than the other one. No, this exists.
What's it called?
Noisy-le-Grand. Right, so Noisy-le-Grande. Right, and you can Google it and you can find all kinds of interesting stuff. I had loads more of these from a lecture that I gave on another aspect of social policy in France, and some of them are just unbelievable. They're painted, there's some in Nanterre, just outside Paris, that are painted to look like clouds in the sky, so they disappear into the sky. Right? I mean, talking about, you want to get rid of the poverty in these people, you just camouflage them. Like, you can't see, I mean, it's just, there's a whole, I could talk about this for days, so I'm not going to join in it too much. Right? So gender. We've already got to look into this. We've already got a bit of a clue, because if you look at the pictures of class, right, in a dominant sense, they're guys. And this is something that increasingly comes up in a way that these guys are constructed as a kind of security threat, more so than women. It doesn't mean that women get off the hook, unfortunately, right? So, you've got the idea that you can see here as well in some ways, with the kind of jihadi bride discussions. The men are sort of terrorists, and they kind of have an autonomy. Women are these kinds of oppressed and manipulated, they've sort of kind of been duped into becoming involved in sort of dodgy crimes and terrorism. But there's a much deeper issue and an obsession around women, right? Which is, in terms of Muslim women, it's actually quite dark in the French context. We can see this legally, with banning the veil, for example, right? This famous case that happens in France where you can't wear the Islamic veil in public schools, but you can wear a small cross. But if it's about religious symbols, then you can wear a small veil. Again, you can see these kinds of hierarchies that are being built. Something else, because I'm doing stuff now on social media analysis. So when I looked at Google Analytics, the questions around how these identities are constructed online, which is a relatively new form of research, something that made the news, and I'm trying to justify bringing this in now to not look like a complete pervert on Saturday afternoon. Porn, right? Something that is becoming increasingly important in our society in terms of what people consume, how they receive ideas and narratives and all these kinds of things. The top search term in France was a slang term for specifically Arab working class Muslim women. Right? This is the most popular search term for porn in France. So there's this real kind of gendered Orientalism that kind of goes on. This essentialisation of these people as the men are violent and kind of savage, and the women are mysterious and in need of kind of sexual inquiry. There's a real dark set of things going on here, which I think again is important in showing how we put the meat on the bones of Islamophobia, right? It's not something that's kind of affects men and women in the same way, right? And this is why we need to kind of unpack these notions, in my opinion, right? I often threaten my girlfriend that this is going to be my next postdoc, right? When she doesn't like me doing kind of stuff on ISIS and Twitter. Oh, well, next I might do. Oh, right, no, don't worry, no problem. We'll go to another council statement holiday. It's okay, right? So, the political context, and which you're going to see play out over the next couple of months for sure. And a famous scholar of France, Alec Hargreaves, who wrote a book called Multi-Ethnic France, which for me is the definitive English language work on this subject. Right? It's so broad and a very good introduction if any of you are interested in further discussions. Explained it to me as a tail wagging dog. Right? French politics is marked by a process where the tail of politics wags the dog, not the dog wagging the tail, right? And what he was talking about is the crisscrossing in the current era, where national politics is kind of haunted by this demon, which has got a very different face to what it had 20 years ago, of the National Front. Right, so 20 years ago you had Marine Le Pen's dad, who was your like sort of cliche, jackboot wearing, overweight, male, very gruff, ex-commando fascist. You knew he stood with this guy, right? He's a fascist, there's no question. Yeah? He looks like one, he acts like one, he talks like one, he makes comments about Jews as well as Muslims, you know, he's there. What you've got now is something that's even, in my opinion, much more dangerous, is you've got an articulate, well-educated, feminine, blonde woman. Not quite as obvious as a sort of, you know, ex-commando that used to torture people in Algeria, right? It's much more, in my opinion, much more dangerous because she's wolf in sheep's clothing in a sense, yeah. Crisscrossing in the current era, dangers both in centralist Front National policies and far-right centrists. What do I mean by this? Well, so you've got a situation on the right where you had far-right with a nice, very obvious jackboot-toting ex-commando fascist, and you had the kind of centre-right in France. Now what's happened is, the centre-right has gone to the far-right to try and get the votes of the far-right, and the far-right has come into the centre. So actually you have, if you look at it, the rhetoric of Fillon, this very grubby man who's been caught with his hands in a cookie jar recently, a lot of his rhetoric, specifically on the Muslim issue, actually sat to the right of the National Front. So some of his quotes, some of his discussions of policy aren't typical of centre-right parties. He's trying to get that ground. He's trying to say, no, I'm tough on this issue, and I'm going to kind of go as far as I can go, even to kind of out far right, whereas Le Pen has said, this whole jackboot fascist thing is a bit out of fashion. We've got to try and get to the centre. So her comments have actually toned down quite a bit in this campaign, specifically in some ways on the Muslim issue, which is very interesting and actually very dangerous political context, because it means that the way you can use Islamophobic rhetoric becomes much more mainstream, right? So the tail is wagging the dog, yeah? The dog's responding to the tail, and then these things are becoming more important in the mainstream. The local level, now this is something that I've done research on, but isn't as obvious, especially in the English language press or in English language scholarship, right? Because it's like, it's the local level, right? It's not seen as important. You've got a mayor in a town in the south of France, which is called Béziers, which is a kind of real declining, quite poor place, who is like, not exactly Front National, but aligned with them, who just makes the most unbelievably racist, Islamophobic, xenophobic comments, but has been elected as a mayor of this town. And this, the North African Muslim population of this town is enormous, right? So it's amazing that he's managed to kind of get himself elected. He'd done this amazing video on YouTube where he went to see recently arrived Syrian refugees that were squatting a derelict building, and he arrived in a French sash, right, dressed like really smart, into this like derelict place to tell off these refugees that don't speak French that what are you doing here? We don't welcome you here. You're in France. You're not in Syria. Get out. And they were just sitting there like, what is this guy even saying? Right? It's all of this kind of politics wrapped up in this performance and these kinds of deeds that people in France are much more aware of in terms of the local level in some ways than we are here. Marseille, the story of the not so grand mosque, right? So there's been a very interesting attempt to build a large place of worship in what is possibly, and there's no stats, so this is all a bit questionable, but in what is possibly Europe's most Muslim city by proportion of population. So the population is about 800,000 in terms of Marseille, and the Muslim population is between 150, 250, some would say 300,000. I mean, there's no stats, so we can't say. There's a lot of Muslims there, is the basic idea. And there's no central place of worship, alright? There are these kind of small shopfront mosques. There's a lack, as there is in a lot of French cities, of kind of a religious space in particular. But here, the city authority had this kind of more anti-racist, kind of recognition-based line of policy and tried to get the grand mosque built. And there's just been so much controversy, legal challenges by the far right, and all of these kinds of things that is still not reality the original plan was 100 years ago, but it became became much more important politically about kind of 10 years ago, and it's just still, it's not reality, right? And they had a festival which was unique in France, where they celebrated Eid in the city. So they had this like cultural festival. It didn't even really have a religious component, yeah? It was just on Eid, and they would bring musicians and kind of poets and people like that from parts of the Muslim world to kind of, in a way, fight some of this Islamophobic kind of rhetoric and kind of normalise the Muslim presence in France. Look, we're not just terrorists, yeah, we're not just, you know, fundamentalists or women that, you know, wear loads of clothes that you need to kind of somehow get off them. But we're artists, we're poets, we're kind of all of these different things, right? This was counselled by the incoming right-wing administration partly because they're fearful of being accused of being too pro-Islam in France, right? They're very worried about the far-right vote. So they're kind of attempting to sort of wheel back some of their policies, right? So, time to come to some conclusions then, really, from what we've seen. Historical context is important, as it is, right, in constructing our social world, but we shouldn't ratify it, yeah? We shouldn't raise history above society and say that it's timeless and it's important and that it acts in the same way as it did kind of 40 years ago. Historical narratives are made and remade, rendered important, rendered unimportant by contemporary social developments and the way that society is structured. Class is the earliest and perhaps even more prominent and more marked in a lot of ways than the Islamophobia question in France, and it is such an important part that we can't talk about Islamophobia without talking about class, right? It's the earliest national phobia, right, in this respect. Gender, highly gendered process reflecting much broader issues in some ways, right, within society specifically, but again, you can't talk about Islamophobia in France without doing some deconstruction of the different gender roles that are put in place, right, and some of the problems with that. And also you can't talk about, in my opinion, without discussing the contemporary political context, which is highly toxic vis-a-vis France's Muslim population, and in particularly is unfortunately, and this may change actually, hopefully if Macron is elected, but has been marked, at least in the past 10 years, by a kind of ratcheting up of sort of anti-Muslim rhetoric, the construction increasingly of Islam as the problem. Right? Not necessarily just ethnicity, not necessarily just class or delinquency or crime, but specifically this religion poses a threat to our society because we have this wonderful and obviously completely unproblematic secular republic, right? And that's kind of the end of my talk, really. So if you have